Hi class, today we're going to be creating a surreal composite using the pen tool and paths. That's a way that you can save selections in Photoshop or with these paths. And then we're going to use layer masks to refine any edges that we need. So first of all, to get started, I have an image here, and what I'm going to do is have a octopus kind of climbing out of this television. So what I've got to do is cut out this center screen, and we're going to be using the pen tool for this. Here's our pen tool. The other thing too to make sure that you do is to look up at your options bar, kind of a normal procedure, because over here, instead of a shape, which is a path that fills with color, we want a path, just a path, which is basically a saved selection. The other thing that we want to do is, since we want to cut this out and subtract this, turn this into a whole, we're going to want to create a choice here of subtract front shape. We want to subtract out that monitor. So that's what we want to choose for this. Next thing too is that backgrounds don't really do so well when you're cutting things out to transparency. So I'm just going to double click on the background and turn that into a layer. I'll call that TV. Now what I'm going to do is come in, zoom in, Command plus, and cut the center screen out. And this is how we'll start with these curves. Starting at the bottom of the slope, we click, come around the curve, click and hold, and begin to drag opposite of the desired curve to fit the path up just the way that we want it. After every curve, we need to option click on the last anchor point. So we'll do that each time we create a path. Option click, oops, option click, and then come around this curve. So we continue this process as we move around the simple shape here. Oops, let's see here. And then finish it off here along the edge. Do a little cleanup where you see fit, and there we have it. Now that path doesn't show up in your layer panel. Where it shows up is in your window menu paths. Let's go take a look at it. And this is what it looks like. Bring this over for you to take a look at. And by the way, whenever you're looking at these paths, the white part represents the area that you're going to keep. So you can see this dark area here will be cut out. So that's an indicator that you've got what you want. Now work paths can be replaced. So if you ever create a path and it says work path, simply double click on the path and that will save it. I'll call that screen and click OK. Now what we're going to do, this is where the path is saved for kind of like a selection. I can come down into this button, which looks like a selection, and turn this into a selection. Let me zoom out for you. Now you can always tell what you have. If you have a selection along the perimeter of your file, that's telling you that all this outer edge is going to remain, and this is what's going to get cut out. I'm going to come up to the select menu, and now we have this really cool area. It's called select and mask. Used to be called refine edge, but they've changed the name, and this is how you get your edge just the way you want it. We'll click there. Now you can see that my let me get rid of this thing. Now you can see that I've got a panel up where I can control the edge of right along the edge of my monitor here. Things like turn your transparency up all the way to 100%, and then in your view mode, the most common places to look would be either on black or on white. And you can kind of see if you like it. Also, this onion skin is really helpful to make sure you like the cutout. I'm going to smooth this a little bit, not much, maybe 4. Feather a little bit, 0.2. That just softens your edge slightly And the rest of this is okay. Contrast will make your edge sharp, and shift edge will bring your selection out and in when you come back if you were to have a selection. Lastly, in the output settings, some of these corners might be closed, so you got to open them. You'll find output to, and this is really important. We're going to output this layer to a layer mask. That will give us full editing capability as we've seen in other projects. And click OK. So now we have a cutout in the center of our television where now we can place something coming out of it. I've got an image here that I like a whole lot. This is our happy octopus, and I'm going to select all of that right here under the select menu. It's also Command A or Control A on a PC, and just copy that and then bring that into this file with an edit paste. So now we have that. It's a little big, so I'll zoom out. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to figure out how to make it look like it's coming out of the television. So I'm going to turn the opacity of that octopus layer down. This way you can see both the back layer and the front layer to kind of position correctly. Now I'll move it down to start to figure out how to fit this where I want it, and probably shrinking it under Edit, Free Transform, which is both scale and rotate. Holding your Shift key down for proportion, we'll kind of shrink this guy a little bit. Want those little feet. And then come in and move it down a little. I like the eye in there, so just kind of move it around till you're happy with what you've got. That looks pretty good. You can see I'm kind of checking it out. This is going to be cool. This arm will come back behind the TV. We'll do a little bit of erasing here. The head will be erased so it looks like it's just inside the TV. And the legs will come sprawling out. So it'll be both inside and outside. Okay, the other thing I'm going to do is, in case I need, sometimes you want to have duplicate the octopus layer to put it behind the TV as well to sandwich that TV in the middle. That can be useful, so I'm just going to show you that. I'm going to duplicate this layer, duplicate. Other duplications of layers, ways to do that would be Command J or Control J on a PC. Duplicate, and I'll call this background. Click OK. Now we have a copy, and I'm just going to drag that down to the base. There we go. So TV is sandwiched. Okay, good. So now I'll turn that up, the opacity, and click on the top layer and turn that opacity up, and I'll begin to use the pen tool around the octopus. Now, to save a little time, I'd probably go through every little tentacle, but for the process of the video tutorial, I'm not going to do that. We're going to grab the pen tool again, and now starting at the base of the curve of the head, I'll click, let go, and begin the process of placing a path around our object here. And we'll just move around each one of these tentacles. Like so. Other thing too, when you're using the pen tool with a path to get a really good selection, a recommendation that you'll find in books is to keep your path just a little bit inside of your object. So when I point, I really make sure it's inside of the octopus rather than including any of this white stuff. Just kind of shorten that tentacle a little bit, and option click after every curve. Sometimes you miss it. Coming along around and option click. like so. Try to get as much out of each curve as you can, because that'll make this even that much smoother. So we're creating a surreal project where it looks real, but it couldn't possibly happen, using the pen tool and turning that path into a selection, choosing select and mask to get just a beautiful edge, which we'll do here in a minute when I'm finished, and then cutting out the areas that we want for the project. And I like paths because they indeed give you the most gorgeous curves. If you use your magic wand or other tools like the magnetic lasso, your selection is a little rough. This gives you absolutely a gorgeous end result. Kind of going to make it up right here a little bit. Okay, continuing on, we'll just come around this portion. And then when we come full circle, it's really like dot to dot, we'll close this. Now we have our path, and that's what it looks like. We can again see that in our paths panel, which is over here, right here. And I'm looking at it, and what I can see that doesn't look right is that when you look at these paths, again, the white area tells you what you're keeping, and then the gray area tells you what you're subtracting. Now that's not a big deal. If you make that kind of a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Here's what you do. I'm going to get my selection tool, click off of the octopus, and then when I click back on it, I can come up here and tell it, hey, I actually don't want to cut that out and subtract it. I'd like to combine it. That means that you're going to actually get the octopus in the end. Now the other thing too is I'm going to click off of this again, and I want to cut this out, the little hole right here where the arm tentacle is. We can do that with the pen tool. The only thing we want to do is now make sure that we have subtract chosen, and then we can come around that. We'll just do that quickly. That means we're subtracting this out. So if you have something like that, this is how you cut it out. Now to double check that, if you're wondering, okay, did I get what I wanted? Grab that selection tool, and when you click on, let me turn off a few things. Let's see if I can just give this to you on its own. So if you can see this, I'm going to click on the outer perimeter, and that should be combine shapes, and then I'm going to click on the inner part that should be cut out, and it says subtract. So we're in good shape. So now when we're at this point, I'll again turn on the layer for that. I'm going to make sure that I target all of the path now. You see, I only really have the inner part here targeted. So just to show you, you can click and drag across the whole object, the whole entire path, and everything is ignited. Now we're ready to load that as a selection. Turn on the octopus layer and click Make Selection in our Paths panel, and indeed there it is. Go back to Select, Select and Mask, and cut this now out appropriately with a little bit of smoothing. I like a little, and 0.2 feathering. Don't do too much more than that. And then output again to new layer, or to, excuse me, layer mask. And then click OK. So now we've got that beautifully cut out. The end result then is we've got